Hey Jeff.
Hey Martin, how are you doing?
Yeah, all good. Just heading back home from the street.
Good stuff. You
What
just
about you?
driving, finally getting home?
Yeah, after the workout, we get like 6:30. Um, Workout done and heading back home. Uh, well, I'm looking forward to the session.
Very cool. All right. We'll let everyone in real quick. I think everyone is finally here. All right. How you doing, Paul? Amber? Dylan and Tesh, how you guys doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Good.
I'm doing all right. Just putting together the plan for next year. So just going into annual planning right now.
Hot topic.
Yeah, I'm building out our kind of our waterfall revenue operating model, which is like leads to pipeline to ops. And then we're doing all the account planning now with the reps. See if we can even fund the growth that we're thinking through. All right. Today we're going to talk about compensation. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter lecture, but I'm going to share my screen. I'm curious who here works on comp design, administration, or execution.
Do administration.
Okay.
To work on the designing as well at some point. It's not very clear in my company, who actually takes over composition plans.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. It's kind of the Spider-Man image where all the Spider-Mans are pointing at each other. It's like,
Yep.
Is it RevOps who owns it? Is it finance who owns it? Is it sales who owns it? So,
Yeah.
very cool. All right. I've been there. So we're gonna go into compensation design. All right. So who here has seen the movie Office Space?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sure everyone has. All right. So this is Milton. He somehow is a forgotten employee that's still on the payroll that everyone thought he was fired. And here he is asking for a commission plan. Very similar. This is the one topic where all the sales reps will want to talk to you. And where all the sales reps will waste endless amounts of time trying to calculate how much their paycheck will be. So let's start talking to the plan. When we think about comp plans, there are a number of different challenges and risk that you're thinking through as you're designing and executing your plan. The first is that the CEO and the CFO can generally believe that the sales program is too expensive, right? They'll use some sort of benchmark to understand what a normal cost of sales should look like, cost of acquisition, and then they'll benchmark against their current spend. So a couple of things that we can do, we can figure out how to right size expectations. We can develop different thoughts around our distribution, and we can tier these different plans based on a cost coverage basis. The second is the product team is always hammering away at the sales team for them to sell more of a certain product, right? So you want to be able to build plans that are in line with your go-to-market attack plan. If you're releasing new tier 1, 2, or 3 features that we talked about in another lecture, maybe it makes sense to build flexibility in your comp plan to allow any new product releases mid-year to be accommodated by your incentive plans. Third is sales is inevitably always going to complain about how high their quotas are. It's just the way it is. It's one of the things that I try to compare with industry averages, bring those benchmarks in. And quite frankly, most of these reps, they look for a new job. They're going to find the same quota multiples pretty much across the board everywhere else. Fourth is the components of your comp plan are too complex. And so the sales reps have a little bit of paralysis. So my personal thesis is to simplify those comp plans as much as possible. And then on the back end, supplement with as much enablement and training through the managers as much as possible. Lastly, the company spends way too much time trying to figure out how to calculate their commissions. If you ask any sales rep, show me your spreadsheet where you're back of the envelope calculating your commission. Almost everyone will inevitably have one. And so the goal is to try to eliminate that spreadsheet and carve back an hour or two a month to your team so that they can go out and prospect. So when we get through it, we think through, how can we start estimating how much the sales org will cost? Inevitably, we have different roles. So account executives, what you see there for AE manager has a wide span of control at 7-to-1. Here you have a org of 40 reps, 6 managers, but it's not just the sales reps that are selling. Selling can take village. So for certain types of products, you're going to have sales engineers or solution engineers, solution consultants, different roles. But this is the pre-sales role, the person who is embedded with the product and can actually showcase all the bells and whistles of your solution. Here you're going to have a ratio of 3-to-1. That means you have 13 sales engineers, and so on. You can go through all the different roles, BDRs or SDRs or LDRs or MDRs, whatever you call them. They might have a manager, and you can see that the total org's quota target bookings is 52 million. And that's because you're taking the entire quota, the average quota of the reps multiplied by the number of reps, and that gives you 52 million bucks. Now, what's this going to cost us, all these individuals? Everyone has an on-target earning. The on-target earning is split into 2 factors. The first is your fixed salary or your base wage. The next is going to be your variable or your commission. I usually use the term fixed plus variable, but some folks might use base plus commission or base plus bonus. That OTE for an AE here is on a 50-50 plan. That means that their base is 130,000 and their commission is 130,000. Now that's a high leverage plan because you have a 1-to-1 match between fixed and variable. Now you might have different plans because they're taking on less risk. They might have a 70-30 plan, a 60-40 plan might be somewhere in the middle, and then very little risk is going to be on the 80-20 side. BDR here is going to earn a 65,000, sales engineer at 170, and you can see the total org, which we did in the last slide, was 67 individuals or 70 individuals. And you can see that the cost is going to be about 16.3 million. So if we can achieve 52 million bucks in bookings this year off of this org, that's going to tell me that our implied cost is 31%. Now I can tell you that this cost is going to go up because we're not always going to achieve $52 million per rep. So what does that look like? We stratify the reps even further. We know that certain reps are going to have a distribution to them. So we're going to have our A reps, our B reps, and our C reps. Our A reps are going to overperform. Our B reps are exactly what we want the majority of the org to be. So if we add up our A and B reps, we hope that's over the majority. And then if our C reps are going to be underperformers, we want to stratify them as much as possible. This is going to tell me that our org is going to attain around 79% average, right? You might come up with your own distributions based on your own history. If your quotas are too high, you're going to see attainment percentages go low. If your enablement is too soft or too ill-prepared, you're also going to perform pretty low. If your product is a nice to have as opposed to need to have, meaning that you have very low product market fit or you're in a luxury kind of space, you're also going to have a low attainment, especially in this market. So you can see that the $52 million is now projected to be about $41 million, meaning that our quota deployment of 52 million is actually 26% over assigned, meaning the 52 divided by the 41 will give you that 26% or 126%. Now, when we think about this, we're probably going to maintain a revolving door of the C reps, right? They're going to be coming and going all the time because of performance improvement plans. They're also probably the reps that are probably checked out and looking for other roles. So we're really going to be banking on our A and our B reps. And hopefully trying to coach some of these C reps to B reps, but we want to focus a lot of our retention strategies and our promotion strategies on these A and these B reps, because these are the individuals that are regularly performing and contribute on a positive basis to the business. So we can develop, if you have a body of work and a high number of reps, you can then develop a view on average and standard deviation. If you have a very small org, I would manage them a little bit more tightly in terms of the distribution. If they're underperforming and they're not certifying the way you want them to in your enablement programs, probably good to cut bait 6 to 9 months, 6 to 9 months into the role if they haven't been certified. And if they've been a tenured rep for over a year and they've been underperforming below 50%, I would probably cut them. So that $41 million that we talked about is really 40.2 million. but you can see that we're only banking on the A and the B reps because they're bringing in pretty much all the bookings, 95% of the bookings. Now, this is just a fictitious scenario. Your numbers might look different, but you can use this type of framework with your history and your projections for next year to start thinking through what is your coaching strategy, what is your retention strategy, and then what's your hiring strategy going to look like? Are there telltale signs of the previous reps that you can then utilize to reconfigure your interview process that would test for those traits and then bring those folks in and de-risk future hires in the long run? So we do the same thing with our BDRs as our AEs. We stratify them into A's, B's, and C's. We can see that their estimated earnings are going to be different. They're not all going to hit quota. So we can now extrapolate and back into what their commission numbers are going to be. So the $40.2 million that we sold in reality is going to cost us 16.1, as opposed to, I can't remember what the exact number was when we had the $52 million booking number. So instead of 31% cost of sale, we're looking at a 40% cost of sale. And that's because we have underperformers in our org that are bringing down the cost. And we're also losing some performance because we're not anticipating everyone to hit 100%. We only have a portion of our reps hitting an average below 100%. So that's why you see the costs go up on a relative pound for pound basis. And then on a nominal basis, the total bookings actually goes down as well. So you can allocate $52 million, but in reality, you're targeting $40 million in sales. So what does that mean? That we're probably attaining 78, 79% of the number. There are some heuristics out there where folks use 70%, right? So they'll say, here's our plan to the street, to the entire org. It's $100 million. We've told the board that we're going to try to close $65 million this year. That means you have a massive oversight of 50%. And if you believe the org is going to close 70% average, that means you'll hit $70 million. The team might not be satisfied with that, but the board will be super happy because they'll be at 65 million. So what I'd encourage is maybe a 65, $67 million target internally, $100 million in bookings over assign. Depending on your win rate, you might want to very carefully think through your over assign. And then you always want to overperform what you commit to the board. I'll pause here, see if anyone has any questions, because I know this is very number dense, these last few slides.
What's the best practice cost percentage?
I can tell you what, I don't know if there is a best practice. 40% is not bad here. If you're going over 50%, I'd be a little worried. I would look at the ratios of your headcount. I would be a little worried because that's 50% of your cost of acquisition right off the bat. On top of that, you're probably going to layer on tooling. And depending on what your payback period looks like, I would try to right size your cost of adjustments using those parameters, your CAC and your payback period. So you can sort of back into the math there. I just ran my numbers last night. Let me see what it is. Once I pull this up on my other screen, I'll give you my number. But I think I was at 20% cost of sale expectation. So
Nice.
much lower than this number that you're seeing here.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because we don't have a lot of middle management whatsoever. We have no managers, just a lot of really strong enterprise AEs who were previously managers and stepped back into an IC role to work with us. Have you run your CAC numbers, Amber? I'm curious.
We're in the midst of it right now, running our current CAC, and based on the structure of the team for next year and added headcount, et cetera, we're trying to estimate what the CAC may adjust to make sure we're in line at this point.
Yep.
So all that to say, we're in the midst of it now.
Yep, makes sense. Very cool. Yeah, so I read my numbers last night. It was 18%. 18% implied cost of sale on the hiring, on the headcount side. I'm really thinking about this is because we have the same quotas globally, but the cost basis for reps in EU and LATAM are significantly cheaper. They're like half the price of what we're paying reps in the US actually. Yeah, I'm running these numbers. The cost basis in some of these other countries, and that's where we're forecasting the same quota attainment in those regions, but for lower costs. It's probably unrealistic. I probably should need to press on that a little bit. Sorry, 27% implied cost of sale, not 20%. So it's not too far off from this.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
All right, so when we think about comp plan, we have its constituent parts. So let's go into each one of those elements. The first is, being able to call out, what are the consequences of cancellations, refunds, defaults, essentially your clawback policy or your withholding policy. If an employee is terminated, what happens to the remainder of their book? Depending on your jurisdiction and the laws in your area, you may have to pay them out. Third is your commission formula. This is really all the elements that go into your plan and how those pieces interact, and then what tiers you might have in order to calculate your commission. Your performance incentives. So you may have, in addition to just straight up the math, you also have these triggers or objectives that reps may have to hit. So to give you an example, one of our bonuses is paid out to our general managers who are achieving an unlock for a new feature, because we sell agricultural scope 3 emission software. So if we're launching rice in India or sugarcane in Brazil, these are crops that aren't necessarily grown in the US, but these are things that we want to measure. So we're incentivizing, our team to go after them. This would be a performance incentive. Another one would be you achieve half your number by halfway throughout the year, because we want to push you to move up from a B to an A rep, right? So there are certain folks that you might develop different performance incentive for. Next is when the commission is paid. So create a clear timeline of what the process is from the moment the books close to the moment the data is extracted and run, and then the statement sent out for feedback. Next is when the commission is earned. So when do you accrue the commission? Not necessarily when it's released. So you may have a comp plan that has a hold and release feature to it. So like an example would be, we don't pay until we collect the cash. That's a hedge against the cash flow of the business. So you'll see certain businesses create different structures like that will align, cash distribution, cash payout with cash coming in. Another one would be, certain industries have a natural fixed cost to them, so they won't pay back any dollars until a certain percentage of their commission is earned. So for example, we won't pay you until you earn back your monthly salary. So if you have a 2x salary quota to your fixed, we won't pay you until you hit the 50% mark, because we want you to at least pay back your seat. I've seen that quite a bit in some blue collar industries. I think it's a bit antiquated, but that's how those industries have operated for quite a long time. So the sales reps have come to expect that kind of plan. So bonus questions, things that we'll want to develop in our sales compensation program is what happens when, someone is separated from the company. If they go on leave, do they receive quota relief? I think these are some new discussions that are happening today. It's a bit of a kind of a culture war in sales. And then transitioning into different roles midterm or halfway through the year. What happens when they switch? So, how do you prorate the plans between those timelines? So you want to develop, different questions where you're developing your program, and write down, exactly how you're going to execute each one of those movements. So when we think about a comp planning framework, let's start with defining the roles and responsibilities in the org, establish a clear coverage model, exactly what they do. Next is developing their KPIs. How do you want to perform them? How do you reward that transparency? I like to provide the tooling that will allow me to then show them all the data that goes into the plan. Next is, in each of those elements, we actually have a bar that they need to meet. So for example, how much new bookings, how much expansion bookings, how much in sales for product A versus product B, How many deals can they give with discounts involved? So you want to have clear measures for each one of those performance metrics. Next is figuring out, determining your realistic target and your payout curve. You might do a 20, 30, 30, 20 curve with normal distribution, or you might skew to the right and say, we're realistically thinking that the upper 60, 70% of our org is going to attain more than 50%. And then the bottom 30% is going to achieve 50%. And then we create a revolving door of those C reps in and out. On the crediting side, it's, now that we know their metrics, we know how they're measured, we determine the curve, we can start thinking through, how are they credited? At what point in your systems do you say they've earned this commission, and when did those funds get released? So when we think about a comp plan, we have to start with a couple of, instead of the elements, we're thinking through an additional set of features for the program. Who's eligible for this plan or not? Hold on, I might be slowing down a little bit. Okay, I'm back. All right, so when you think about your program, you might have multiple plans. You might have a plan for an entry-level rep, senior level rep, entry-level manager, senior manager, BDR, any program you might run, you might have 12 different plans. So who's eligible for which plan? Next is their total target cash compensation. That's their OTE. Then you want to develop their pay mix and their leverage. So if it's a 50-50 plan, that's a 50% fixed, 50% variable. The leverage on that is going to be 1-to-1. It's a 100% leverage plan. So most plans aren't going to be 50-50 except for the frontline reps. If you have sales engineers, BDRs, managers, you're going to see less than 50-50. I have seen quite a few managers and CROs recently get up to 50-50 pay mix. I think it's pretty rich, but that's kind of the way the sales comp has moved over the last couple of years. I used to see managers in the 65-35 range, but now I'm seeing them in the 50-50 range, just as much as their reps, which I think is bananas. Performance measures and weights, we just talked about that a second ago. Quota distribution, we talked about that as well. Now, performance range is something different. It's your A reps minus your C reps. So what percentage is the gap? So if your A reps are performing at 125% and your C reps are performing at 50%, that's a 75% performance range. You can develop a performance range from your B, C reps too. It's probably more appropriate. So if your reps are achieving 80 and 50, you want to see the majority of the reps falling into that performance range gap. So the hierarchy of a comp program is the program itself that might be comprised of multiple comp plans within multiple countries with multiple currencies. So the sales comp program, you might want to have legal language around how your sales comp program is run, and then refer to specific plans which your reps will have access to. And I always serialize my plan. So plan A1, plan A2, plan A3, plan B1, plan B2, and you can see which populations of folks fall on their specific plans. The individual sales plan are each one of those elements that I just mentioned. Then the sales plan components are parts of the plan, which we just talked about earlier. And then your design principles. What are your do's and your don'ts for your comp program? So for example, do you pay on $1 or do you have to pay back the seat, right? Do you have to go over a hurdle rate? Do you hold and release? Do you normalize international currency to domestic currency first? So what are your first principles that you focus on? For me, my programs generally benefit the rep, but early on, if I'm brought into Series A startup, generally you'll see less favorability to the rep and more protection for the company's cash flow. So you'll typically see a pay on collection type of model. I've probably run 3 comp programs like that. All right, so total comp. This is going to come with your HR team, but these are things that I look for specifically if my retention rate is dipping and it's not due to good management. They're leaving because in the exit surveys, they're saying they're getting a better deal from other companies. So I'll look for these type of elements. So reward and recognition is something that we can control as ops and enablement and sales leadership. Next is your reimbursement policy. I've seen very early stage companies not have their stuff together in terms of simple things like submitting their expenses. That I've seen a couple of folks leave because of that. Spiffs. I think spiffs are a powerful tool, specifically in Q3 and Q4. Q2, I would use to juice the pipeline. OTV and variable, we just talked about that. The benefits, this is going to be with your HR group. Salary and fixed, you want to be competitive on your fixed salary. Maybe not top of the market, depending on your industry. All right, so these are the comp plans. Amber, I'm curious about your plans. Are your plans 50-50 for your sales reps?
Yes, we're 50-50.
Okay, what about your other roles?
That's a good question. Like I was literally just looking for SE because I don't know what the mix is for the SE role. And I don't know what the mix is for like the VP level, for example. But I do know our sales team is 50-50.
Yep. Paul, what about you?
Yeah, for our sales reps, it's 50-50.
What about the other roles?
For SCs, I think it's like a 70-30, I believe. Admittedly, Acrolinx is a little, they've been around for a fair amount of time. They're a quote unquote startup because they're relatively new in the North American space, but they existed in Europe for like 20 odd years. So a lot of the comp function sits with our finance org. I'm just more involved in like the validating the data and like spot checking the payouts based on the plans that the individual reps have. But I just focus on the sales remit right now.
Okay, cool. And Natasha, what about you?
Well, at the moment, we haven't gotten to a point where we made this kind of plan. So I can't say anything, but we want to get there at some point. So
cool. Okay, so let's think about, what dictates whether a plan is 50-50 or 80-20, what dictates that? To me, it's leverage and risk involved in the sale, right? So your 50-50 plans are going to be reserved for your highest risk roles. These are your account executives. Your SDRs might be on a much lower plan, 65-35, 70-30. Your account managers, these are like, hybrid hunter farmer, maybe 65-35, 70-30. It seems appropriate. An account manager or a renewals manager, you're probably going to put them on an 80-20 or a 90-10 plan even. Your sales enablement leader, probably going to be on a 70-30 or an 80-20. In the old days, I used to see managers in the 65-35 range, 70-30 range, but now you're seeing them in the 50-50 range, which is like bananas. I keep harping on that because 15 years ago, it wasn't this rich. So a better way of thinking about this is the degree of influence on a deal. There's a compensation book. I'll send you the title. It's called Sales Compensation. It was created by one of the partners over at the Alexander Group. And he talks about the degree of influence on sale. So the higher the degree of influence, the higher the pay mix, the higher the leverage, the lower the leverage, the lower the degree of influence. You can kind of think of that. So think about all the different type of role that you have in the organization, start mapping out what does the degree of influence mean? And then think about along those axes, is it high or is it low? And you can start to really think through what is the appropriate pay mix? So there's an old rule of thumb. This is a heuristic. I'll put this out there, but this is the rep who everyone looks up to and says, I want to be that person. The 3X rule. So you have one person who earns 3X their base salary from their commissions. This is generally going to be your top 1%, top 2% reps. So the 3X rule is if someone can achieve a 2-for-1, totaling up to a 3X, that is going to give you the 3-for-1 rule, right? If you have that, then you have someone in the org that folks can look up to and say that, it gives them that aspirational ladder to climb. When I was a sales rep, there was a person who, I think he brought in like $800,000 a year total. And then I think my biggest year was like 200K. And just to see this person smash an 800K number was inspiring. All right, so quota distribution. So this is from the Alexander Group. Now, your segment, your price point, your industry is going to have a different distribution curve. The data is really hard to come by. So one of the things that you can do is when you're interviewing the top reps or top managers for any open roles, It's a great opportunity to collect that intel, especially if you're interviewing competitors from competitors. The second is going to be third-party data points. These are going to be generally surveys that have maybe 100 or more respondents in it. It may or may not relate to your specific industry, but the data is at least something that you can benchmark against. I usually run that every year using some of the recruiting surveys that come out, some of the surveys that come out from Pavilion. I'm a member, so I received those surveys. I can look at them real quick and I can start to get a sense of, are we really far off, or are we somewhat similar in terms of our distribution? Are my quotas too high? Are they too low? And what if our quotas are going to be high, then we need to really raise the bar on who we hire. That person has to be, high propensity to close, high propensity to succeed, demonstrated years of experience at being a top rep in the other place. And they're willing to roll up the sleeves and learn, especially if they're coming into a startup environment. They can't just be someone that expects everything to be there, then come over and then realize they have to build everything themselves. I always look for people with high grit, particularly because I keep joining startups. If you're joining an environment that's, has all the trimmings, whole enablement, really robust content management system, certification programs, then you could probably get a plug and play rep, right? So to each their own, figure out the type of sellers that you need. That's beyond the scope of this course or this lecture, but something that I always like to think through as well with my enablement leaders. So if we think about spiffs, who here is running a spiff this quarter? All right, I'm guessing nobody. But Q4, if you've already started teeing up some options for spiffs, we've developed one spiff this quarter for my team. We developed a team program where the winners all fly to Chicago and they're all having a Michelin star dinner. That's kind of like the spiff that we've created for Q3. We're doing something similar for Q4. It's not a cash comp, but it's more of a cultural thing. We're getting the teams together to celebrate, their achievement for the quarter, but different ways of where to use spiffs. If you need to boost engagement with the team to get them jazzed up. Second, market visibility, really thinking through kind of getting into a new market. Push or pull sales, these are really trying to move the close date of a deal. A new launch, this might be a new product. And a booster is a temporary boost in the arm of a specific metric. I use pipeline for my SDRs. We create spiffs. I don't like weekly contests for an SDR team. It becomes too regular. I would like to try to keep the element of surprise with these special purpose incentive funds. All right, so when we think about overlay quotas, these are quotas that are the roll-up of several, one or two or more direct quotas. So you could have a pre-sales sales engineer covering 3 account executives. Their quota is going to be the sum of the 3 AEs. So if $1 million quota, the SE quota is going to be $3 million. Overlay manager quotas are also overlay quotas, so to speak. Sales enablement leaders tend to have quotas. I myself have a variable commission plan, and I'm tied to the overall number of the business. Now, when we think about selling with specialists, this particularly works for businesses that acquire other companies. So think about Salesforce, who's acquiring a startup. That newly acquired product is a standalone product. It hasn't yet been integrated to the full suite of the Salesforce. The sales rep. Hold on, okay. The sales rep may not know every in and out of this new product, so they bring in a sales rep from the acquired company. That person comes in as a specialist and pitches that product. So for example, when Tableau was acquired by Salesforce, the Tableau sales reps would be considered like a Salesforce specialist for a while. The thing about the specialist is, do you comp the specialist and the rep on a double basis, right? So for the same booking, do you pay out twice, or do you rev split the commission? There are different rules of thumb. There are different decision trees for how you should think through this. I'll show you one such decision tree from the Alexander Group, but I would develop your own. So this is what that might look like. This is from the Alexander Group. If their deployment needs a dedicated implementation manager, or you just log in and configure on the back end, teaming requirement means that you need to pull in an additional team member as opposed to doing it yourself. So the pre-sales person comes in, and they're also taking care of the pre-implementation. So if the product is standard or non-standard, you can then develop different roles in the org. This is probably likely going to be more for the largest companies that are out there. For the startups, this might be really overkill, but you can start to think through, when do I bring in someone else that needs to then take over? And for that level of risk, the degree of influence is now starting to get a little high for this role. Instead of just double comp, we may need to do a team split instead. I'll give you an example of this. At AWS, we were selling to an international company. The decision makers were in one country, but they needed to convince their European counterparts, because of the time zones and the propensity to needing to meet in person. We needed to bring in a European seller, and so we developed a rev split for that deal. That was a custom rev split that we had to go get approval for, and justification on what was going to happen with the deal. Both teams came to the table with a high level of willingness to participate in the deal, and really started to work out the details for what that would look like. And so we ended up coming up with a 70-30 split for that specific deal. I'm developing that language now at my own company, and we want to think through the decision tree that looks like this on, how do you account for these multinational corporations? All right, so overassign. I'm curious who here has overassign in their comp plan.
We do.
Okay, and then where does your overassign sit? Does it sit at multiple levels or just one level?
Multiple, but each level you go up, we do implement a buffer.
Yep, that makes sense. What do you mean that by buffer? Like, how did you implement a buffer?
I just mean by each management level that you go up, they're not a true sum of the team below them. They're a sum less X% for their personal
Yep.
personal
What
quota.
you call a buffer there is called a cushion here.
Okay.
Yeah, or an overassign, right? So the higher your overassign, the more cushion you have. So if you assign $100 million in quota, and your true target behind the scenes is actually 80, that means you have a 25% overassign. Now you're probably not going to give 25% overassign to one level. You might have multiple levels. And so you're going to split out, 10, 12, 5% here and there. And it gives everyone a different level of margin of safety or a cushion. So when you think about the overassignment here, you're going to have different psychological effects in the business. So if the overassign is spread out, that means everyone's shouldering the risk, right? So the scenario one, the VP of sales has the entire quota, the entire overassign. The CEO eats it. That would be a really poor choice in my mind. And then company 3 is probably the best one, is where you're splitting it up, right? So then we think through, this is from SaaStr. Jason Lemkin put a poll out there in one of his, I forget what year set this was, but he said, well, what's your quota overassignment? And you can see that there was actually a small minority of orgs that had 43% or above overassign, which is an odd number to demarcate at, 43%. But that's a huge number of people. It's like 1 out of every 8 orgs either had way too much quota allocated. It means either they have a product that's really hot and you're just going to smash it, or 2, you have you hire too many people, or 3, you have your quota multiples wrong and everyone's going to perform poorly for the year. So probably quite a few things, but the right size thing in my mind is a 20-25% overassign at the target level, and then you can break it up however you want throughout the orgs. All right. Yeah. So at these levels of overassignment, everyone's got to feel terrible, but I'm pretty sure the company feels amazing, because you only have to hit 50% of target in order to make the number that you committed to the board or to the executives. All right. Curious here what your quota to OTE multiples are. Amber, I'll start with you.
I'm sorry, the what?
What's your quota to OTE multiple?
Oh, 3.
That's a good one. Paul?
Yeah, we're 3 also.
All right, Nitesh? Oh, Natasha's gone. All right, well, what about you, Sebastian? Adela?
I don't know.
It's okay if you don't know. What about you,
Yeah, we
Sebastian?
had a better answer.
Cool. All right. Let's get to it. I think my OTE multiple is 7-to-1 for our global reps, and then it's 5-to-1 for our enterprise reps. You'll typically see, higher OTE multiples in the 5-6 range for your enterprise sellers, global account managers, global account executives. And then you'll see a lower OTE in the 3-to-4x range for the mid-market, and maybe even the SMBs. 2x is a very rare thing that I see. I hardly ever see that, but you're going to see it in the 3-to-6x range is the norm. All right, so when we think about our comp plans, we want to start thinking through dispute resolution workflows. So how does someone raise a dispute for either the payment or if they have a question? So you want to create a workflow. This is getting into process design. It could look something like this. In mine, it's just a simple paragraph of what the next steps are, what the expected SLA process is going to be, and what a typical judgment would look like. And then when do the adjustments or decisions made in that dispute get processed? All right, so when we think about clawbacks, there are different ways to think through clawbacks. You can do it at the deal level. You can do it at the product line level. You want to have a clear dispute process. You want to try to find a way to automate that process as much as possible. And then when you think about the clawback, do you claw it back at the same rate that it was paid at? Or do you take it last in, first out, or first in, first out? Or do you become more surgical with it? It's going to have a different impact on the cumulative rate. So for example, if it's one of your first deals in the year that you sold and it helped you move into a tier that's up and now you're at a new rate, how do you handle that clawback? You claw it back at the new rate, you claw back the old rate. Does that impact all the deals afterwards? Everyone has a different level of thought around it, but personally, I think if you go super surgical, it's the fairest thing to do, but it's also the most burdensome from an administrative standpoint because you're going to have to recalculate everyone's comp. Second is bluebird and windfall. So do you cap your commissions? This is very unpopular, but very common for largest companies. Microsoft, Amazon, Google will have commission caps to them for many of their plans. And so if a deal comes in, new rep, an inbound deal comes in for a huge number that's over their annual, do you want that rep to get credit for the full deal because they now have an incentive to probably coast for the rest of the year? So some folks come up with a bluebird or a windfall policy. My company is so early stage that we want to attract people with the idea of an uncapped, unlimited earning potential. So we don't develop a bluebird or a commission cap policy. So with that, I know we have to end it's a shorter lecture. But if you have any questions, let's roll those into the office hours. But if you have any questions before that, please drop them in the Slack channel and then I'll be happy to address them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Later.